We'll wait for her outside.
Okay, but in the meantime, we see a troop of bonobos, also called pygmy chimpanzees. Just like with common chimpanzees, they are among our closest living relatives in the animal kingdom, sharing up to 98% of our DNA. They live mainly in the jungles of the Democratic Republic of Congo, or as it was formerly called, Zaire. In the wild, they mainly eat fruit, leaves, termites, carrion, and honey. And bonobos and common chimps are the only animals, other than humans, that can both make and use tools. Like, they use sticks like fishing rods to fish for ants and termites, and they use rocks like hammers to crack open nuts. Quit snickering. Anyway, bonobos are actually much more docile than common chimps, and when there is a dispute within the troop, they solve it with certain peaceful methods, which I will not mention at the moment because I prefer to keep things PG on my channel. But to keep it simple, bonobos are lovers, not fighters. And unlike common chimpanzee troops, the troops of bonobos are matriarchal. And here we see the Bornean orangutan, or Pongo pygmaeus. The name orangutan comes from the Malay word that means man of the forest. Unlike chimpanzees and gorillas, orangutans live alone and spend most of their time in the trees. This is a male, given that he has flaps on the sides of his cheeks and a pouch on his throat, which makes him look more attractive to a mate and intimidating to rivals. In the wild, they eat leaves, fruit, honey, seeds, and flowers. The Bornean orangutan is endangered mainly due to habitat loss and poaching. And here we see the orangutan. The name orangutan comes from the Malay word that means man of the forest. Unlike chimpanzees and gorillas, orangutans don't live in troops. And they're the largest tree-dwelling animals in the world. In the wild, they mainly eat fruit, such as wild durian, and leaves, flowers, and honey. There are 3 different species of orangutan: the Bornean orangutan, the Sumatran orangutan, and the Tapanuli orangutan. All 3 of which are endangered mainly due to habitat destruction, because the forests of Borneo and Sumatra are cleared away to make room for palm oil plantations. But when a mature male orangutan reaches maturity, it develops a throat pouch to amplify its calls, and cheek pads on the sides of its face to make itself look more impressive to both females and rival males. And here we see the Sumatran orangutan. The name orangutan comes from the Malay word that means man of the forest. Unlike chimpanzees and gorillas, orangutans live alone, except for mothers with young, and spend most of their lives up in the trees. In fact, the orangutan is the world's largest tree-dwelling mammal. In the wild, they eat fruit, especially wild durian, and that, friends, is the call that the male orangutan makes when he wants to attract a mate or ward off rival males. Speaking of which, when a male orangutan reaches maturity, it develops cheek pads and a throat pouch to make itself look more attractive and ward off rival males. The Sumatran orangutan is endangered due to habitat loss and capture for the pet trade. Here we see the western lowland gorilla. All gorillas seen in U.S. zoos are western lowland gorillas. Only one zoo in Europe has eastern lowland gorillas, and there are no mountain gorillas in zoos. Nada! Gorillas are highly social creatures that live in large family troops made up of a single silverback male, like so, a few blackback males, several females, and their young. In the wild, they mainly eat fruit, leaves, shoots, and nuts. And outside of an occasional sprinkling of termites, they are strict herbivores. Not only is the silverback the undisputed ruler, he's also its protector and responsible for keeping order. He will often ward off rival silverbacks and leopards by performing chest-pounding displays. Western lowland gorillas are critically endangered due to habitat loss, poaching, and the Ebola virus. Great grand gargantuan gorillas. These are western lowland gorillas. All gorillas seen in U.S. zoos are western lowland gorillas. Only one zoo in Europe has eastern lowland gorillas, and there are no mountain gorillas in zoos. Nada. Zilch. Gorillas are highly social creatures that live in large social groups made up of a single silverback male, like so, a few blackback males, several females, and their young. The silverback is not only the ruler of the troop, but also its swarm protector and responsible for keeping order. He wards off rival silverbacks via chest-pounding displays. In the wild, gorillas mainly eat fruit, leaves, tree bark, and stems. Outside of the occasional sprinkling of termites, they are strict herbivores. Every night when the troop stops to sleep, they will build nests out of branches and leaves. It usually takes a gorilla about 5 to 10 minutes to make a nest, and the young always share the nest with their mothers. The western lowland gorilla is critically endangered mainly due to habitat loss, poaching, and the Ebola virus. And gorillas can be stronger than 10 full-grown men. In fact, if a gorilla was playing tug of war with that many men, it would end up mopping the floor with them.
And if a human possessed the strength of a gorilla, he'd be able to lift if 2 family cars.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Once see it? Swing biscuit. Knock you out.
Yep. But nonetheless, gorillas at the end of the day are nothing more than gentle giants. Here we see a white-handed gibbon, also known as the lar gibbon. Gibbons belong to a family known as the lesser apes, and they are mainly native to the jungles of Southeast Asia and Indonesia. This is a female gibbon, while that way in the back is a male. Gibbons are strictly arboreal creatures, and they get around via brachiating, or swinging with their hands, and they seldom come to the ground. In the wild, they eat fruit and flowers, and they often live in small family groups where both parents work together to raise the young. And every morning, gibbons mark their territory via songs that can echo for miles through the jungle. Here we see a troop of the white-handed gibbon, or Hylobates lar. Gibbons rarely come to the ground, and their arms are perfectly built for a movement through the trees known as brachiating. In the wild, they mainly eat fruit, flowers, and leaves. They tend to live in small groups, and they mark their territory in the early morning in a song. This is a female lar gibbon, while that is a male. And gibbons usually mate for life. Now here's a real swinger, the white-handed gibbon, also known as the lar gibbon. All gibbons belong to a family of apes known as the lesser apes, and they all live in the jungles of Southeast Asia. In the wild, they mainly eat fruits, buds, and leaves, and they get around through the trees by swinging in a method known as brachiating. This is a female lar gibbon. The males are black and white. But they all live in family groups where both parents work together to raise the young. And every morning, gibbons mark their territory with songs that can carry through miles through the jungle. The lar gibbon, along with many other gibbon species, is critically endangered due to deforestation and capture for the pet trade. Here we see a pair of siamang gibbons. Gibbons belong to a family of apes known as the lesser apes, and all of them live in the jungles of Southeast Asia. They are strictly arboreal creatures and get around through the trees in a method known as brachiating. All gibbons sing in the early morning to mark their territory, but siamang gibbons have a special throat sac that helps to amplify their call. In the wild, siamangs mainly eat fruit, flowers, and buds, and they live in tight-knit family groups where both parents work together to raise the young. And the siamang is the largest of all gibbons. All gibbons are threatened by habitat destruction and capture for the illegal pet trade. This is a male northern white-cheeked gibbon, or Nomascus lusogenus. And this is the baby. Gibbons were built for life up in the trees, and they rarely come to the ground. And as this little fella is demonstrating, they get around in a motion known as brachiating. In the wild, gibbons mainly eat fruit, leaves, and flowers, but this guy here likes a good mouthful of lettuce. And, like with all gibbons, they mark their territory every morning by singing that can be heard from miles away through the jungle.